Hey there, this is Keith Cawley at CES 2023 with Thrive, a Bridgestone Americas podcast. On the road today, we are in Las Vegas talking to industry leaders, partners, other people with Bridgestone, bringing the future of mobility to life, talking about sustainable mobility, digital transformation. It's all happening around us here at CES 2023. And today we are excited to talk to a gentleman who has been at the forefront of some of this, I feel like, for a good number of years and has a little bit of expertise to share. But we are joined by Eric Chaniot, who is the General Manager, Automotive Mobility and Transportation at Microsoft. I feel like that name brings a little bit of, title brings a little bit of gravitas to it itself, but thank you so much for joining us.
Very nice talking to you, Keith.
Yeah, well, I think we've got a lot to dive into. Really interested in learning about your perspective, your experience. We do love to start with a little bit of background on all of our guests so we get to learn where your perspective is coming from. So if you could, what's been your career journey and how did you get to your role currently at Microsoft?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I started writing software when I was 13 years old, which is, just a few years ago. And then at the time, my dream was really, to be able to start to, create products, and I was very interested by what Apple was doing. And my dream at that time was to work for Apple. So I started writing software, and as a teenager, I was, in exchange of my work, I will get some hardware. And I still remember, I worked for 2 months, and I had a big piece of hardware, which was a hard drive, and the hard drive was 20 megabytes, right, at the time, anyway, long times ago. And then I continued working on the tech side. And what I did on the tech side, I created product line, and then I moved to creating businesses. So at the end of the day, when people they ask me who I am really, I will say I love disruptive innovation, but I'm very pragmatic on the way, you can bring, disruptive innovation to market. So anyway, so I don't know if that's enough background. Yeah.
Oh, sure. But so you've worked, I think, in the automotive industry before. We don't need to avoid it. You've worked for Michelin in the past. And then kind of how did it evolve to that opportunity and then to Microsoft? Being, if you wanted to work for Apple, I would imagine Microsoft is a pretty good alternative as well.
Right. Yeah, and I can give you my, so I worked for Apple for 7 years, 10 years for HP. Then I created 2 startups. So one that worked and one that did not work. And then I worked for Michelin. So I was the global chief digital officer for Michelin for 6 years. And then at that time, I felt like, it's the right time for me, to get back to the tech industry. And when I take a look at, all the tech companies, I decided to come working for Microsoft. And one of the reasons for that is that I believe that most of the companies in the mobility space, they're really at the middle of this transformation from being a product company to being a services company. And all of them, at the end of the day, they want to become software companies. And when I take a look at all the major players, I really believe that Microsoft is interesting because Microsoft is not competing with the business model of their customers and their partners. So I said, from all the companies, I believe that the values, the culture, that Microsoft has, I think it's better than the others and will enable, all the OEMs, tier 1, tier 2, etc., to do their transformation with a company that they can trust. So anyway, so that's why I decided to be there.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think you mentioned it right there. One of the things we wanted to focus on with you was this idea of the digital transformation and the evolution that is really across the industry as a whole. I mean, for those walking the floor here, it's now an entire hall at CES focused on vehicle technology and mobility solutions. What are the biggest trends and movements that people are coming to you at Microsoft or that you see people needing to make in the industry?
Yeah, I think to summarize the digital transformation of companies, I always say it's 95% about mindset, culture, change management, and only 5% about technology. So very often there is people that they believe that they need to bring this and this kind of technology, and then it's really going to transform the company. But I really believe that for companies that have been on the market for decades, then no, it's very different than that. It's really everything about the human side of the digital transformation. So that's one aspect. Now, if you take a look at traditional companies, they're used to selling products. And selling services and selling software is very, very, very different than selling products. And to some extent, it's almost like if you try to combine two DNA codes that are very, very different. So on one side, you have the product, the life cycle of the product. And then from the other side, you have service and digital, which is very different by nature. So I think that the challenge of most of the companies is how do you make sure that these two ways of operating, could be efficient, could run efficiently, on the same roof of the same company. So companies, they come to see us and they say, guys, you are the software company at the end of the day. So you are the software company. We need your help on, what does it mean? So do you build software organization? We talk about agile, these kind of things. But also they will ask us, okay, what does it mean to sell, market, support, software and services kind of solution? So anyway, so that's where we help, our customers.
And we're in that, I think, for those who've listened to us have previous conversations on the podcast, you're working, I'm sure, with Bridgestone is very much in that setting right now of this digital transformation,
right,
products to services. I think naturally you talk, it's an interesting kind of layout that you put on. 95% of it is not the technology. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the human mind of operating. We see, I think, a lot of that is there's a natural hesitation to change as humans, right?
Wow.
How do you approach, I guess, working through those boundaries and bringing those people who are hesitant along for the ride?
Yeah, I think there is at least two tips I can give you. The first one is the outside in. So I think that as much as you can, you should be able to bring people from the outside, people sometimes that are not directly, in the same industry that you are, but who went already through this journey. And then you should be able to bring, the knowledge inside the company. And I think that's what you do today, with the podcast, giving perspective, from the outside world. It's very powerful, let me tell you that much, because sometimes when I will say something inside the companies, people will listen to me, but not really. Now, when it was another chief digital officer explaining exactly the same thing, then guess what? It will be much more powerful. The second thing that I learned, and I'm going to make a black and white statement, which could be right or wrong. But anyway, the second thing I learned is that there is really two types of people, I will say, inside big companies. So there is people who really love innovation. Mm-hmm. And when you love innovation, guess what? You love change. You thrive on change, you need change, otherwise you get bored, right? So, and then for these people, the only thing that you need to do, you need to tell them, okay, where they are today, what is the from, and where you want to go. And they will start to imagine what is the future, all the benefits of the future. They will be very excited, even if, there will be a lot of uncertainties. And then they will be able to, deliver the future state, right? Now, there is a second side of the population inside companies who are very scared of change.
Sure.
Very uncomfortable with uncertainties. So anyway, I had a coach. And then the coach told me, Eric, you need to ask 4 questions with this kind of people. I said, okay, so what is it? So he said, okay, number 1, okay, you need to tell them what are the disadvantages of today's situation, okay, great. You need to tell them what are the advantages of the future state. And then you need to ask 2 additional questions, which is what are the advantages of the current situation and what are the disadvantages of the future situation. And when you do that, guess what happened? It's almost like you open the Pandora box. You demonstrate empathy, and then you will really understand what are the blockers that people they have, to be able to move forward. I will give you a simple example, mm-hmm. right? So I talked to a data scientist doing design of products. And, I'm an excited guy. I'm excited by the cloud. I'm excited by AI. So I said, it's great. Here is to the situation. You design your products on your side. And then tomorrow, using the cloud, using artificial intelligence, you will be able to leverage the work from others, right? For me, that's enough. If you just tell that to me, I'm very excited about that,
Sure.
right? Now, I ask the question, what are the advantages of today's situation? And then they say, oh, you know what? I feel that when I have everything on my PC, I have power. I have my own design on my own PC. I'm controlling everything. Okay, so what are the disadvantages of, the future state? The disadvantages was, okay, now if all my, what I'm doing, all the work that I'm doing is shared with others. If others are able to get better than me because they leverage my work, I'm not sure I feel super comfortable about that. But the good thing is that when you ask the questions, at least you understand, what you need to address. And then we address these kind of challenges, and then they were able to move forward.
It seems like straightforward questions, but then also turning the questions a little bit to just expand or reposition the perspective a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
And it opens up dialogue.
It opens dialogue, and because when you are in charge of driving digital inside a company, of course I'm going to say that digital is amazing. What else should I say, right? Now I really need to display empathy and really understand what are the kill blockers, and make sure I can answer to them.
You don't open it up with, I love change. Let's all love change together.
Right,
we don't. Yes. That's not the opening line, right? I think one of the other things you mentioned is companies that have decades of roots and foundations. I mean, Bridgestone has been around for 90 years, Firestone 120. You talk about evolving beyond tires, and people immediately are like, whoa. How do you work with that, I guess?
Right. No, I think the what is key at the end of the day, and that was the same, by the way, for the transformation of Microsoft. One of the first learning is you need to honor the past to be able to invent the future. So you need to pay a lot of attention, and you really need to display that, the companies that have been there, for 100 years, guess what? Some amazing people have been able to create innovation along the way for decades, and you need to admire that. So you need to really spend time on all the innovation, all the things that this company they have been created, and being aware, being able to communicate on that. And I think that you just need to say, you know what, guys, at the end of the day, digital is just the next step. You have been innovating for decades, 120 years. Great. Digital is just the next wave. So don't make it too complex, it's just the next wave. The other thing that I've seen also is that sometimes there is some chief digital officers who love to be very technical, and it's almost like I don't know, they want to display that they are smarter than others, and they use things that people they do not understand.
Sure.
So I think you need to be obsessed at making it as simple as possible.
Yep.
So for example, when you start to use artificial intelligence, okay, the technical side behind that is complex.
Sure.
But then, I was always talking about, it's just going to augment what you are doing. So it's not going to replace you, and I think it's not going to replace them, but it's going to make your life easier, your work life better. You are going to get better with your customer. You are going to get better at what you are. That's it. It's just going to assist you, right? It's like an extra brain that it's outside your core brain, but it's not going to replace everything that you are doing. So anyway, I think being obsessed at putting yourself in the shoes of the others and making sure that you do not scare them, I think it's critical.
I hope that people listening see some of that, because I think, Paulo Ferrari, who's our America's CEO, Shu Ishibashi, who is our global CEO, we talk about there was Bridgestone 1.0, 2.0, and then now we're in 3.0. So they're building on foundations. And Paulo talks about our foundations as a core part of his vision strategy. So I hope that does resonate. And maybe hearing it from the outside, like you said, helps drive it home a little bit, which is nice. The last one I wanted to talk about in this idea of transformation is an idea of partnership, co-creation, working with other industry leaders. You said a little bit of outside in from a perspective standpoint, but an awareness of a company maybe that they can't do it all themselves? And how do you approach or think about that perspective?
Right. So I think that if I take a look at and I will start with technology companies. Mm-hmm. In the technology world, and I was working for HP, so the biggest vendor of HP on the laser jet business was Canon. Okay, Canon. All the laser jet engine were made by Canon at one point of time. Now, the biggest competitor of HP on the laser jet business was Canon. So it's very interesting, this kind of relationship where, okay, your biggest vendor at the same time is your biggest competitor, right? So what's very interesting with the tech companies is that the tech companies, I think, are great at understanding what is core and what is non-core, okay? And now, on everything that is core, tech companies, they are going to ferociously protect their IP, make sure that, they keep the differentiation, etc. Now, on what is non-core, guess what? They are going to partner even with their worst competitor, right? So I think that if I take a look at, all the companies in the mobility space, OEM, Tier 1, Tier 2, etc., I think that they are not there yet. I think that they are used to, they build everything on their own. They believe that they will be able to, master everything on their own, right? And I really think that they have to use exactly the same process that tech companies they are using at really understanding what is core and what is non-core. And so anyway, now with tech companies specifically, whoever they are, but of course it's better if it's Microsoft. I think that Microsoft and others are making significant investments on the cloud, on digital technology. Sometimes people, they ask me, what is Microsoft doing? I say, okay, guys, just realize we do from Xbox to quantum computers and everything, in the middle. So anyway, so we do massive investments. So I think that, companies like Bridgestone, they really should understand, how could they leverage this investment? Yeah. What can they do that you will still differentiate yourself, but by leveraging, the technology that we have. So anyway, so back to your question, sure. I think it will make everybody inside companies much more comfortable is they really understand what is core and they really understand what is non-core. And I did that several times. And usually when you start to do this process, everybody is telling you that everything is core.
Of course, everything
is core. Everything is a priority, everything. But guess what? That's not true. And I think that, probably you should learn from the experience of, the tech companies.
It's another thing, Paulo and Ishibashi-san have been very focused on. To do what we want to do in the future, we need to co-create. There's people who can make what we want to do better, and then we have things that we can offer vice versa, right? So it's a beautiful thing.
And it's a mindset change.
Correct. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for taking a few minutes. It's been great to talk to you, and excited to see the future as we build it all together.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And reminder to our listeners, you can listen to all of our podcast episodes wherever it is that you prefer to listen to your podcasts. Just search for Thrive Bridgestone. You can also find the videos to watch on our YouTube page for Bridgestone Americas. And if you have a topic you'd like to recommend or a question you'd like to ask, just send an email to thrivepodcast@bfusa.com. I'm Keith Cawley. Thanks for listening. I want to remind you, even from Las Vegas, to keep on keeping on. And remember that at Bridgestone, today, tomorrow, together, we thrive. Be good, everybody.